Hey, Ian.
Hey, Matt.
How are you? You doing all right?
Hey, Matt. How you doing?
Good. Yourself?
Yeah, just give me. I'm just gonna grab a coffee real quick.
Yeah, go for it. Hey, Eric.
Morning, Matt. How are
How are
you?
you? All ready for Christmas?
Yeah. Well, no, not quite, but we're getting there.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
Just a few
Yeah.
more things to do.
Yeah, right.
Are you traveling or are you staying in town?
We're gonna be here till Christmas Day, and then we'll drive down and see family in North Carolina.
Nice.
Christmas Day to New Year's.
Good. Well, I hope the weather's nice down there.
Yeah. It's generally like, I don't know, 10 to 15 degrees cooler.
Yeah.
Although my wife was just down there for a couple days this week, and it was 30 degrees warmer
Oh my gosh.
down
Wow.
there. So yeah, it's like it's almost hot down here. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's hope.
Yeah. It'd be nice to see some warm weather, maybe get
Mhm.
around to golf in or something.
So, Barry,
Morning, Ian.
how
How are
doing?
you?
Good.
Good. Thanks for the recording, and thanks for doing this again.
Yeah, I'm gonna try not to speak for 37 minutes with no one there except my dog.
Well, without the presentation up this time, you'll be able to see if we're interacting.
That's it. That's right. Yeah, that's the whole plan.
How about you, Ian? You ready for the holidays?
Yeah, I think so. This job's very seasonal for me. So I get my academy plan for 2025 and all the kids that are going to be in the academy. I get it wrapped up end of November.
Nice.
I'm kind of chilling December-ish. Dan Merrill just joined. Blast from the past. Yeah, so I'm kind of chilling. I got my tickets for Disney on Ice and Paw Patrol. It's very, very different
Nice.
for me now, is it? Yeah. What about you, Matt?
Yeah, just about ready. We stay in town. We're from the Midwest originally, but we stay in town for Christmas and New Year's, and hang out with our neighbors, which is really nice. We don't have to go anywhere.
That's cool.
Yeah, we have a really good neighborhood.
A great neighborhood is worth its weight in gold and then some.
Absolutely. Yeah, we joke we're gonna die in this house.
Yeah. Everybody. Keep everybody in that neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I see. Mr. Miller, how are you?
What's going on, man? How are you?
Let's talk soccer.
One of the questions I was going
Let's
to type
go.
in was do you think Nottingham Forest is going to qualify for the Champions League?
Dude, you should be asking me if they're going to win the league. Never
No,
mind the Champions League.
come on.
Yeah, I know. I'm not one of those crazy fans that gets delusional, but I'm pretty close right now.
Dude,
When we beat Aston Villa, when we were 1-0 down, we had that goal disallowed. I was like, oh, that was tough. And then we scored 2 more goals to win. Like that, I don't know if you watched that game, but we like dominated them, and they're a good team.
dude, Chris Wood now is like apparently the best player in the league.
Yeah, it's funny, right? Because I follow like Forest memes. So you've got like Chris Wood, and people are semi-superimposing Ronaldo and Messi's face on him and Maradona. Like the memes are just hilarious.
Do you know who Eric Hanley's team is now?
I know Brandon Pelfrey's is Brighton.
Well, take a guess. See if you
You're
can
not
guess Hanley.
far.
Go on, Eric. Who are you?
Fulham.
That's not bad. Honestly, like if Forest were doing how Fulham were doing, I'd be fine.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you don't want to go chasing those riches. If you go chasing those riches and then it all explodes in your face, that's happened to Forest before. Like
Mm.
I'm more than happy if we finish 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. I'd take it.
Which is
You know?
completely foreign to most Americans. Like, what? You're okay finishing 7th, 8th, 9th? But it makes
I know.
perfect sense in the Premier League. Yeah.
Because you don't get relegated, right? So like when you get
Right.
relegated, it just sucks. You're not on TV. You play poor teams.
Yeah.
Like getting to watch Forest every Saturday at 10 a.m. So I go to the gym, come back, English breakfast, put my Forest shirt on. Like it's awesome. If they get relegated, all that goes. Like
Go Spurs.
They're safe.
Spurs. Oh,
Go
man,
Spurs.
that is not the team you want to support.
Oh,
They're so weird.
I've supported
They're
them for so long, it doesn't even seem weird anymore.
They beat
it's
teams.
stupid.
They beat good teams like 4-5-0, and then they lose to like Ipswich.
Yeah, it's wild, right? I do like the manager though. I do like how he his press conferences, and I do like his style of football. But he's got one way, and that's it. And if you get caught out, like game over.
Yeah.
All right, it's 9 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. Before I turn it over to Ian, just a few quick housekeeping procedures to go over. We are recording this session today, so if you need to refer back to it or share it with some of your coworkers that weren't able to join, it will be up on our YouTube page probably next week. This is very much a discussion today, and we encourage you to chime in and ask questions and talk to Ian. But when you're not speaking, please remain on mute so there isn't any background noise. Video is optional, but sometimes it's nice to see your face when we're speaking to you. There's one button on your screen I'd like you all to avoid hitting. It's a rectangle with an up arrow. That's your share screen button. Please do not click that, as that will interrupt the presentation. If and when you have questions, you can either unmute yourself and jump right in, use the raise hand feature, or put the question into the chat and I'll prompt Ian. If you have any technical issues, please put those into the chat and I'll do my best to help you through those. Just be aware that most of the time those stem from your own Wi-Fi connections. And finally, if anyone has dialed in via telephone today, please send me an email at mfrey@pjhq.com so you can get your PDR credits for today. With that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Highfield.
Thank you. So, obviously, we've been here before, and I talked for a long time to nobody except my dog because the Wi-Fi went off and I didn't know. So I've pre-recorded it. So I'm under the assumption that everybody or most people will have watched that recording. So I want to really just imagine the presentation's done and this is the end where I take questions. We've just got a lot more time to do it. I do think the main theme, obviously, of the presentation was practice. It's definitely a problem, I think, in the golf world and potentially other sports, maybe in school education as well. The way that kids revise, we're just not effective. So everything in that presentation is very evidence-based. So we can share, or I can share, papers and studies and books and experts that I've spoken with that would highlight, hey, this is why spacing works. This is why variability works. This is why context is king. This is why the challenge point is important. This is why massed practice, just repping balls, isn't going to work. So there was a problem. I looked at evidence-based research. I kind of broke it down and made it practically applicable for the player and the coach. At least that was my hope. And as time has gone on, and I've started to do this with more and more people, they've actually evolved what I've been doing. So someone that a lot of people on this call will know, Brandon Pelfrey, Penn State graduate. I employed him at my academy. I taught him this, and I think now he designs better practice sessions than me. So he's dressed up as my assistant at times, but he's not. He's the one driving it, and I'm the one sat looking at the computer and turning up late for sessions. So that's my goal as well from this, not for me to just spout my information. You could ask me questions and say, hey, I have a player like this. If I apply X, Y, Z, what are your thoughts about that? Because I've now seen people that I've helped and taught this to, I think they're becoming better at it and more innovative than me. So, and then obviously questions outside of practice, I'll talk all day about anything. So, fire away.
This is Bob Crowther. I think the biggest thing for me is the buy-in, getting students to buy into it. So suggestions, thoughts.
Yeah, it's huge. So I'll take this down two roads. Something that I'm very, very good at, and something that I really, really need to get better at. The first thing that I'm very, very good at is parent education or pre-lesson information. So I work with a lot of juniors. Before I take them on, I say, hey, this is what we're going to do and this is why. And at my academy, I'm continually sending information out to the parents that support this philosophy. So if you can, and you can use mine, I have ebooks that explain why this is effective. I have practice programs. You could take them, rewrite them. You can just share my work. I think education is a huge part of this. And if someone is paying you money and they don't want to listen to your education or take on your philosophy, depending what part of your career you're at, you can replace them with somebody else. Younger teachers may not have the luxury of doing that. I do now. Some of my coaches don't. So that would be the first point. Parent education, player education, them understanding when they're going to come for a lesson with me. The minimum with me is 5 hours. And hey, this is what we're going to do. You're going to feel uncomfortable. And I almost try and get them to not invest the money at first. And then the second thing is, and I've tried to be better at this recently, if there was a continuum and sort of the innovations along practice, if I'm kind of here on the continuum, and if my player is here on the continuum, they're behind me. They have this belief because they read a Gary Player post on Instagram that the secret lies in the dirt, and they have been told that Tiger Woods and Vijay Singh hit 728 balls a day, and their dad was a pitcher who threw 1,000 baseballs a week. If they believe that, then they're here on this continuum. What you can't do is get them to go like this. What you have to do is you have to join them where they are and slowly move them away. So an example of that is going to be if a kid's practicing for an hour and he literally is just going to hit 7 irons for an hour, I'll join him at that point, and I'll maybe say, hey, why don't we just change direction? Hey, why don't we just move the bucket of balls 3 or 4 yards that way, and you just get one at a time? Hey, after every 5 balls, let's have some fun. Let's try and hit a plugged bunker shot. You know, the bunker's only there. And then you can go back to doing what you're doing. So it's a technique that they talk about a lot in what's called motivational interviewing. You really have no judgment about the person. You're more curious about why they want to do it that way. And you try and, instead of pulling them your way, which is what people on this call have worked with me. So Dan Merrill, for example, will know some of the things I've said in the staff room about kids who don't buy into my philosophy when I worked with him at Bishopsgate when I was like 30 years old, 32 years old. Why don't these kids listen? Yada, yada. So I think now I'm better at saying, okay, they've got a core belief. I'm going to go and join them, stand them in that core belief, let them go for 3, 4, 5 minutes, speak to them about why this is their core belief, and then just make the slightest change that might pull them this way. And then maybe if that's going well, the slightest again, and then be patient, because if they like it and they're the right client, they'll come back. And then So I think that's the 2 things: really prefacing your lesson or your sessions or your academy product very clearly, really using an evidence-based approach and taking that evidence, branding it nicely, putting it in ebooks, communicating on a regular basis so people really know who you are and what you're about. And then when people resist, you don't want to get in conflict. You're just very curious about why they're resisting. You're very interested. There's no judgment. You go and you meet them and you just slowly pull them along that continuum.
Thank you.
I will add as well, I get it all the time. So, there's some nice checks on my resume that you would think a 16, 17-year-old kid who's going to college would want to buy into, because I'm coaching at the level that he wants to go to, and they just don't buy in sometimes. So I experience it all the time.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Roger. Hey, Roger, you're on mute.
Definitely don't want you seeing my face. Look like I'm down at the river in a van. On the variability end of it, if the range is nowhere near the putting, chipping, any area like that, do you just kind of change up the different shots, like maybe from a wedge to a 7-iron, or how do you adapt to that?
Hey, Ian, you're on mute there. Should be at the bottom of your screen.
I think I'm
There you go.
back. Sorry. I'm having PTSD from last time, but I realized I got kicked out this time.
Sorry, Roger, can you repeat that question? He might have missed that.
Yeah, I didn't. I got kicked out.
Yeah, sure. Like on the variability end of it, when the teaching, when the range is nowhere near the putting green or the chipping area, and you want to change up, how do you adapt to that? Do you
Yeah,
change
good.
like a different shots, like to a wedge, to a different to a different club, or?
Yeah, simple answer. Yeah, I would. So depending who I'm working with, I really like players. You know, who do you work with, Roger? Like what level players, what type of player? Maybe I can make this a bit more specific to
I
you.
work with everybody. You name it.
Everyone. Okay.
Yeah.
So likely they don't practice enough pitching and chipping, and they do practice a lot of hitting balls, right? So I would tend to, in that instance, focus on like pitching as my way of interleaving it. So let's say you got someone who wants to make a swing change, they early extend. So you're trying to get them to use the floor a little bit more effectively. They might do 5 balls working on the swing. So not early extending. Maybe the first ball is at 20% speed. The next ball is at 40% speed. Next ball 60. You're monitoring that early extension. And then you might have something like, okay, you're going to hit 3 pitch shots. If the pitch shot lands inside PGA Tour average, currently you have 40 dead bugs to do. Because again, if you can strengthen the core and glute area, that may help with the early extension, right? So you're going to have this physical exercise to do. Currently, you've got 40. Every pitch shot that you hit inside PGA Tour average, or PGA Tour average plus 10%, or PGA Tour average plus 50%, or on the green, or, you know, depending on the ability, you will get 10 of that physical exercise removed from your task. And they hit the 3 pitch shots, and now they've got whatever it is that they need to do, physical exercise. I use the example of dead bugs. So they do their 10, 15, 20, 25 dead bugs, and then they go back to the technical. So they do their 5 swings working on the motor program. Then they've got their 3 pitch shots that are connected to the amount of exercise they have to do. The amount of exercise is actually connected to helping the motor program. And you've developed this nice physical, technical, performance, and mental. Because maybe that person doesn't want to do the exercise. Now there's an outcome on the pitching. So you've just got this nice rotation that they can go through that creates space, creates variability, creates challenge, but doesn't need putting or pitching, putting or chipping green. Does that help, Roger?
Yes, thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
And again, I think if you do goal setting with your, with your players, maybe even at the start of the session, right? Like, okay, so what are you best at? That's something we never really ask. What's going really well right now? Imagine you turn up and they'll probably say nothing, because that's what golfers do, right? But if you ask someone, hey, what's going really well right now? What's the absolute best skill? What's great right now? Okay, what do you need to work on? Okay, what's your secondary goal? Do you have a secondary goal? Okay, well, I would like you to work on this. You could take those 3 things, and as long as none of them is putting, you can always work on chipping away from a chipping green. Just like one I like to do is just, they can start making a little wedge chart. If I go hip to hip, the ball goes this far in the air when I hit the middle of the face. The other one, controlling speed. I really like to get students, if you have a TrackMan or a launch monitor or anything like that. Okay, it's a 54-yard shot. Swing the club at 54 miles an hour. It's a 70-yard shot. Swing the club at 70 miles an hour. It's a 30-yard shot. Swing the club at 30 miles an hour. And that's a great one that can apply to really any level. It's just a game. That's a good one for spacing it out as well. But my initial point was, if you use the player in the game design, and I think this is one of the most powerful things I've learned, if you involve the player in the game design, you have 80% of the game designed in your brain or written on a whiteboard or whatever it is. And by game, I mean, it can be technical as well, because the technical training is part of this environment that you're building. You have 80% of it in your mind. If you involve them in the game design, the science and evidence and research suggests that they will buy into that session more. They feel a part of it. They feel like they've built it. There's a different form of motivation. There's a different form of engagement. So really involving your student in the game design is a very evidence-based, and also I've found very powerful tool to help the session run well.
Joe, I saw you raise your hand and then lower it. Do you still have a question? Okay, Andy, why don't you go?
Yeah, so just to backtrack on kind of some stuff that Ian mentioned earlier, I've known Ian for a long time, and I got to spend a decent amount of time with him at our facility. And I would say not only is this type of coaching good for our players, but I really think it's good for us as coaches, because it's so difficult to just stand there and give the same technical, mechanical golf lesson over and over again. And I think this taps into our creativity as coaches, right? So you can be more excited to put these things together, and it's never the same. It's always evolving, right? Because we're hoping that our players are always evolving, and that challenge point keeps shifting, hopefully, to where we're making these practice sessions harder. And I would say, there will be some people who maybe question the type of coaching, but I think if you believe that this is the right way to coach, and you need to be authentic to who you are as a person, that, like me personally, I'm okay losing those people, because they're probably the people that are just going to jump around from one coach to the next anyway. And I sort of accidentally stumbled upon a podcast, and I'll use this as an example to people who maybe ask questions about it and seem a little reluctant to this approach. I was trying to listen to Challenge Point podcasts correlating to golf, and I accidentally downloaded one from a police department, which I listened to it anyway. And it was this guy who taught his police officers firearms training. And it was this challenge point idea in relation to this. And he's like, we test them and they all perform really well. They can hit the bullseye, a really high percentage of the time. And then when we send them out in the field, they have much less success. And like, if you explain that to your players, it's like, if we're coaching them in a highly structured, no challenge practice, then it's basically the same as sending these people who can, who wouldn't understand that it's easier to hit a target standing in a room with no criminals that you need to be aware of, and the space that you're in. And that kind of relates to what we're doing when we send them on the golf course. So I just think, if you're somebody who's not tried this approach, just start maybe mixing it into your sessions, right? Like Ian, at some point you didn't coach this way, right?
So my journey's a little eclectic. So I was a rugby player. I did not learn kicking this way. So I was a very, very, very good kicker at rugby when I was like place kicker. And we do it properly in rugby, right? Like we have to kick at angles, not like in the NFL where every kick is just kind of straight. So in rugby, when you score, we call it a try, the equivalent of a touchdown. Wherever you put the ball down, i.e. like cross the plane and touch the ball on the floor, that's where you kick from. So there's lots of angles. You could be all the way out on the touch line and have to kick it over. So my dad was an elite level rugby coach. I'm 14 years old, starting to get representative honors, and I'm just kicking from the same spot over and over and over. And there's masses of people like watching, because there's a big game coming on, but I'm feeling really good about myself. And everyone's like, wow, look at this. And the guy who played rugby he'd actually played rugby for England at that time. My dad knows him. He's a high-level coach. He came to me, and instead of having me kick straight, he actually moved me. So if you imagine the NFL, you're not trying to kick it over the posts. You go to the side of the pitch and you're trying to hit the post. So he shrank. Instead of me kicking it over the post like this, I moved to the side, and now I've got this. I've got to hit this. So he shrank the target to this big, and then he made me move around every kick. I had to go from side to side, and he would go from side to side, but then he would also move to the other side of the pitch. So that was the first time I got exposed to this. I got exposed to this when an England international stopped me kicking a rugby ball in a straight line at the post like this, moved me to the side of the pitch, and had me kick at the actual post from a different angle every time. And he would then, his was running in between. So that was the first time I got exposed to it. But I bought in because that was an England international. Like, he's like a legendary status. I am not that person in a lot of the kids' eyes that I teach. So how do we then influence them? So I think what I do, again, another thing that I do, I like what you said, Andy, about the podcast. So I think you can use those tools and share those tools. That's not going to resonate with a lot of kids. I really try to explain, I love block practice. I really, really love block practice, but small blocks that are appropriate to your ability level. So I will let you block practice, but the maximum block you're going to be engaged in is 10 or 7 or 5. Then you're going to change, and then you can come back to your block practice. Often it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So that's another way I've got around this with students. Yes, you can do block practice, but the maximum is block. It's generally anywhere between 15 for a real beginner, just trying to get the ball in the air, make contact, to 5 to 4 to 3 for a tour player. And they'll fall somewhere in there. Massed practice is the enemy. Mass practice results in comfort. Comfort is the enemy of progress. Massed practice is the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. Blocked practice is number of blocks. So that's one way. I share educational resources as well. So there's a study on swimming. I don't know if I mentioned this in the Matt, did I mention this in the presentation about the swimming study, or Eric? No. Okay. So there was a school, and I'll do this one a little bit more with parents, right? And I'll get them the paper. There was a school. It didn't know whether to do 7 swimming lessons in a row or 1 a week for 7 weeks. So it split the school in half. Half the school did 7 days of swimming, 7 days in a row. Half did 1 a week for 7 weeks. When the swimming lessons finished, the people that went every day for 7 days in a row were far better swimmers. The ones that went once a week for 7 weeks were not as good as the ones that went every day. 1 year later, when they all went back to swimming, the ones that went every single day for 7 days in a row had retained very little. The ones that went once a week for 7 weeks, they were now actually the better swimmers. Because what you get from that massed practice, there's not enough space to engage the working memory in your brain. So you're just holding on to a feeling, keeping it, and actually performing well in that moment. A bit like when you cram for an exam. None of us really can remember what cumulonimbus clouds are right now, but we used to know that the day after we'd revised. It's now escaped from our brain because when we crammed, there was no space. So that swimming study is a good one that I share. And then the other one I share with sort of more traditional coaches or parents, when they tell me, like, Serena Williams Tiger Woods. I'm like, so what? They're the exception to the rule. Like, are we really going to build our coaching model around Tiger Woods? We're going to look at what Tiger Woods did, a once in a lifetime phenomenon. Or are we going to look at what little Jimmy needs, or Steve, who's just retired and wants to play more golf with his wife? I'm trying to cater this for everyone. When people tell me Tiger Woods and Vijay Singh just beat balls, but they're one of one. We can't build a coaching model around one of one. We have to build a coaching model around evidence-based research that suits the majority of people. Tiger Woods' level of motivation and engagement, even when he was in mass practice, probably meant he could stay engaged for way longer than the average human being. The research suggests that after about 7 balls, that's when you're going to be checked out. I'm guessing Tiger Woods didn't check out after 7 balls. And also there's slight nuances in what Tiger's actually thinking and feeling and doing that maybe we can't see, that probably created some level of variability. Also, Tiger Woods basically has no body left from hitting golf balls. So I don't know whether, again, if you want to be injured and burned out, it's a good model to follow. So I guess because I've been questioned so much, I have these ready-made comebacks, and I'll just pick one and apply it to the appropriate person. So yeah, Andy, I agree that because people resist shouldn't be a reason to not do this. And I do agree that coaching is more fun, engaging, and enjoyable if you're being innovative.
Go for it, Eric.
Thanks, Ian. So I can see how a ton of this would be applied in numerous ways, depending on your settings. And as we're all in the Northeast here, moving into an indoor time frame, have you found resources, technologies, or certain activities that help maximize the use of the indoor time that maybe we wouldn't be thinking of?
I hate to say this as I work out of an indoor center. I'm still a little out on the transfer. I think maybe a great educational institution like Penn State should maybe study skill transfer from an indoor sim to a golf course. I can tell you what I do. I don't know if this works. I'm pretty confident that what I do on the golf range and then the challenges that I do on the golf course, I'm pretty confident if a child or a child, a collegiate player or a professional player follows everything that I do, they will get better if other factors in their life also align, because it's very dynamic, right? But I'm confident in the on-course games. I'm confident in the golf range stuff and how I've applied that. In an indoor center, I'm scared that the context isn't high enough. And I don't know if looking at a video game screen creates context or not. Now, I've had good players and good coaches. So it was I spoke at the South Florida section and I kind of mentioned this. I think I upset a few people. And a lady there gave a great example that she played on the LPGA tour. I think she lived like New Hampshire, somewhere like that. So when she went back in the winter, she practiced inside and she hit into a screen and it was basically all motor program and all mechanics. And she said that was always the best that she played when she went out at the start of the season. That's when the ball striking was at its best. That's when it felt great. So anecdotal evidence would suggest that yes, there's benefits here. Empirical evidence, I don't I don't know if there's that much that's been done or read. So I don't 100% know, but what I do is I can read a session that I designed, actually. I'll just read you. I just sent this out the other day. So next college prep session, Bay 1, maximum speed. 5 medicine ball slams, 5 lateral bounds, 2 drivers as hard as you can. Keep a note of how the medicine ball slams and lateral bounds are playing into the swing. Keep a note of your maximum speed. Tech work, slow motion swings while talking out loud the mechanical change that you're trying to make. The swing must never pause, and you must be 100% engaged in this deep, deliberate practice. Bay 3, pitching distance control. Carry distance, swing speed, need to match. Smack factor needs to be 1.0. Pitches 30 yards to 65 yards. Bay 4, performance. As a team, we will be doing a combine. When you get into this bay, just hit the required shots, full routine. Please journal on ball shape, strike, and flight. Bay 5, individual swing analysis if needed. So this bay is optional, and you will be opting out of the practice circuit if you go into this. Putting green, be your own stimp meter. Work on length of stroke and see how far a certain length of stroke rolls the golf ball. Journal this down. This will be very similar to a wedge chart, but for putting. The session will start at 9:15 p.m. We will rotate every 4 minutes. You will be on a timer, and you will be required to journal as you move within these 4 minutes of time. So that's how I have it. I see it's a little bit more like a CrossFit gym than traditional golf where everyone has their own bay. So when you come to my practices I design, no one has their own bay so it would be Brandon in Bay 5 would be doing like K-Vest or something like that with a kid, giving an individual lesson if that's what was necessary for that kid. We would also have someone on the putting green using cap toe, and those two would be out of the circuit. They're just collecting data. They're just trying to learn about the kids' mechanics. They would be out of the circuit. The other 4 bays and the other section of the putting green probably has about 6 or 7 kids, and they're just cycle every 4 minutes. They'll change, and they'll either move in 2s and 1s. 4 minutes might be a bit short, but these are the better players, and also these kids sometimes get too social. So if there's only 4 minutes, they take care of business. If I make it like 7 minutes, they're not as intense. But again, that depends on the person you need. So on the person that's coming to training. So I see an indoor center as an overall area to move around. So realistically there's more variability. There's more context because of spacing and challenge. They'll spit out a combine score. I will put food or something like that on the line for the next session if they score over 78 on the combine. 78, maybe 76, something like that. So then they'll be engaged in performance in there. So I believe, and research also supports this, mental, technical, physical, performance, and human skills are what's going to lead to the development of an athlete. And therefore, I use the indoor center to try and create an environment that has all of those 5 things going on. And I will add one more thing. Please have a conversation with ChatGPT about Drive by Daniel Pink. Ask it to highlight the main concepts in this book, and then ask it more questions that apply to you, your life, your golf, and your personal development off. Print this off and bring it to the session on January the 6th. If you do not bring this session, you will do it instead of doing the practice circuit. So these kids have to, that's the human side of it. They're going to learn that away from here. So I look at those 5 elements. I look at the space that I've got. I have the knowledge of spacing, variability, challenge, and context. And then I just try and maximize that in line with that, the group's needs. So these are 76 to 82-ish shooters that want to come to Penn State, go to the Jones Cup, do PGM somewhere else, that want to play D3 college golf. They're giving up their time. How do we maximize what we've got? So I think that's better than anything else that I've seen or that I can think of for an indoor center. I just don't know how good it actually is, though.
Thanks.
Ian, I'm curious about, you mentioned having your students journal after each station. How do you teach them to digest that information post lesson or clinic?
Yeah, it's hard. So I spent in the last 3 years from my academy revenue, I think I've spent maybe like $18,000 on up game stats. And I probably have had $1,000 worth of input. They're just, and in the end I gave up, right? Like, I don't want to be, hey, you got to do spacing, you got to do variability, you got to do challenge, you got to get in the gym, you got to, that was me sort of kind of reducing the pressure on them to do stats, was me kind of going this way, as I said at the start. How do I get them to do it? It's very hard. It's very hard. The interest in them doing that is so low. And the desire of a parent to ask them if they've done their journal and how was their effort in practice versus the desire of a parent to know their score is, to be honest, quite frankly, it's pathetic from the parents. They don't get it. So they're the ones that are creating this environment, because a child goes to what the parents value. And until I can get my parents to really value the reflection piece, we're not effectively closing the learning loop. It's very hard. I have a kid. We had an online portal that they can use, which isn't my favorite. The company kind of designed that. And the founder of the company, good coach called Bill McInerney, he founded the academy and then moved, and then I took it on from him. He founded that, and he's kind of like a techie guy. So they have this portal where they can go in and they can write, and it's really cool. Like, it's nice. To me, it's not the same as pen and paper and journaling and taking notes. And I do believe there's evidence on that. But I just have this one kid right now. He's like 100 shooter. He's just started, split grip, so shallow, chunks everything. But he just worked out how to use the portal on his own. He didn't really have any guidance, and he started journaling in it. And what he's writing, I tell the other kids, yeah, he's 100 shooter now, but don't sleep on this kid. Why, coach? Because he had better habits than all of you guys. We do it at the end of the year. We have an awards ceremony. I do have player of the year, boys and girls, because That's life, right? Someone's going to win, someone's going to lose. But then all my other awards are given out. Best journaling, most effort in practice, fitness effort, best attitude on the golf course, most engaged in the mental program. So I try and build a culture that is going to reduce those outcome messages that often they're getting from their school or their home. And you can also tell the parents that get this because their kids will kind of get it. But fighting that losing battle a lot of the time. I have a tour player who's won twice on the European tour. He didn't keep stats during that time and he didn't journal. I really don't know how he won. He just won. So like, again, we do all of this stuff. Sometimes people are just going to get it done anyway. And I've just learned to be a little bit more relaxed about people not buying into everything that I do. I'm giving them the best opportunity to be the best that they can possibly be. I'm trying to influence the home environment. I'm trying to create a culture that supports and educates and helps kids, collegiate, professional athletes understand this. At the end of the day, they're going to do what they want to do. I do have a player that's fully bought into this. I don't work with him so much anymore. Zach Parker works with him, and he bought into all of it. The reading, the physical side, the journaling. He had me helping him from a performance side. He had someone helping him, I don't want to say from a clinical side, but a more qualified person to talk about their life, like an actual psychologist. And what he did in European Q school was unreal. He went through every round. He birdied the last hole to get his full card. And he needed to birdie his last hole to make the cut. And he needed to birdie his last hole on a different tour to even get into this. So he's reading, he's writing. So I've seen all combinations of this. But at the end of the day, people are going to do what they are going to do. You can only do your absolute best.
Thank you. Go for it, Joe.
I
Joe, you
think
might be
Joe's
on mute. There
Yep,
you go.
I got to figure out how to unmute this.
There you go.
The technical side of it's not my forte. Ian, thank you very much for all this. And the question I have for you is the methods that you employ out on the practice areas. Does any of that carry over into taking someone on the golf course for a practice or a session? And if it does, how do you do that?
Yeah, it does. So I did a session with the Canadian national team. It was their technical time of year. And I took them on the golf course. And on hole number 1, because context is king, right? So one of the limitations of being on the range is your motor program, the way you move, is driven by the sensory perceptual system. So when your eyes see this wide open space, your body is in a different physiological state, and the motor programs that you're going to access are related to seeing this big wide open space. And then you get on the golf course, the 17th at TPC Sawgrass, and you got everything. Looks like the seaside, and there's that crosswind, and then there's that bunker, and you can't see the base of the pit, and you can feel the wind on your face. The grass is grainy. Your sensory perceptual system is now, it's different. It's different. So where you build your motor program has a very large impact on, can you access the most efficient motor programs? And I'm no expert in this. I could be butchering this a little bit, but I feel like this is way along the right line. Some of my terminology might be a little bit out. So once I sort of learned this and understood this more, I shifted a little bit from being like, okay, we build motor programs through deep, deliberate practice to we build motor programs through deep, deliberate practice while our eyes and body are sensing what we're going to sense when we need that motor program. So with the Canadian national team, we did on hole number 1, you were fully focused on your golf swing, fully focused on your golf swing. So you stood up with driver and you thought 100% about technique and you swung at 20% speed and you hit the shot at 20% speed. You then went, pick up the ball, move it to wherever you would normally hit it in the fairway, and you swing at 20% speed. You then move the ball to maybe a knockdown shot, and you swing at 20% speed. Then you put the ball in a short-sided position, and you try and get up and down. If you get up and down, you can double the swing speed for the next hole. If you fail to get up and down, you stay at 10%. And the winner of the challenge is the person who's first to hitting full speed shots. And that's how, so they're getting, on each hole, they're probably getting 2 to 3 technical reps, very deliberate, in context, feeling their golf swing. And there's a little bit of performance in this because now there's short game performance. And then as time progresses, they're injecting a little bit more speed into the motor program. I've since been advised that slow motion swings might be good for awareness. They might not be the best for actually overall changing the full motor program. But if they're good for awareness, then I think you get there. And again, it's just what I'm doing. People will debate this, but that's an example of maybe technical training on the course. Try to think of another. Like if someone's working on chipping, if I have a good player that's working on chipping, I might say like, okay, you play the hole. And then at the end of the hole, you hit an additional chip shot. If you hit the chip shot inside 2 feet, you get to take a stroke off what you made on that hole. If you hit it 2 to 4 feet, score stays the same. If you hit it outside 4 feet, it's a stroke penalty. Shoot level par for 9 holes. Obviously, that's elite player, right? Tour player. I'd adjust that a little bit for a college player, but there's no reason you can't. A lot of people, I assume on this call, will coach like mid to high handicappers that love to play 9 holes. They might even go out there on their own. So if they want to get better at chipping, have them play the first hole, register their score, and then it's a basic chip shot. And if they hit the center of the face on the chip shot, they get half a stroke deducted from their score. And if they hit it inside 8 feet, they get half a stroke deducted from their score. And that can be the only penalty. That can be it. No penalties. And then try and break 42 for 9 holes. So you just adjust the scoring. So whatever skill someone is working on, I will ask them to play, and then I'll tie that skill in some way to the score around the game. So then they just get reps, more reps, but it's reps in context while on the golf course, while under pressure. So we design a lot of those practice programs and email them out for our kids. And to be honest, when you've done this for a while, it's not like there's 7,000 different types of needs from a golfer and 7,000 different types of practice program. You can probably put each player into between 5 to 10 buckets, and it's all saved on my laptop now. It's not like I'm writing these every time. It just goes out. So there's there's an idea of technical, there's an idea of like a skill, and then I guess I would do physical with our kids. With our kids, we do some physical training. I think taking the stack system or the super speed, if you've got someone that wants to build speed, I think that needs to be done on the golf course in context. I think you want to get on the tee, you want to rip around with those speed sticks, go through the protocols, and then you want to smash the driver as hard and as far as you can. 3 drivers, and then you pick the driver that's the best and you play from there.
And on this topic, I thought the last third of your presentation that had a lot of encore stuff was really good too. Really appreciated how you integrated the technical changes into on-course play. So thanks for that.
Thank you.
Go for it, Dan.
Sorry, I'm driving in, so no face.
Right,
Thank you
Dan,
for, yeah, you've seen it. Thanks for doing this again. I had a question about on course as well. Speaking on more the average golfer who doesn't practice as much, so more of what I'm seeing in the summers, out in the Hamptons, not our Penn State students. I want them to take in more and better information from their environment to then understand the decisions they have to make. How would you help someone learn that? Because I know I explicitly try to almost give them a worksheet to do on the course, but how would you help someone learn skills like that out on the golf course?
Yeah, so Andy, our friend Barry, got this a little bit from me, right? Think aloud protocol. So obviously Dr. Anders Ericsson, probably the greatest professor of all time on human performance, just asks people to think aloud as they're playing. So yeah, think aloud protocol. Pre and post shot routine training, journaling, watching interviews with top players, listening to podcasts. But the problem is, Dan, is motivation. The players that you're coaching in the Hamptons, I don't know, and this is in my experience, I'm not speaking for you and your players, I don't know how motivated they are to learn that. I don't think they understand that if they've got that sort of Healy swipe shot, they're just so obsessed with trying to fix that versus, okay, this is how you play with that. So the jury is a little bit out on that one, because I don't know how well that type of player would engage in this. I think that if they get a great caddy at the private club and they hit the ball okay when they're with that caddy, and that caddy gives them, hey, no, you don't aim at the flag here, you aim to miss the green short left, because if I think then they can start developing some IQ through having a positive experience. But it's a tough one, because as well, some of that happens subconsciously. The more experience they get and the more they play, it becomes a subconscious process. Obviously, you can send them Scott Fawcett videos, Decade, and obviously some of Scott's delivery can be a little controversial at times, but the actual philosophy of what he does, if your player can hit the center of the face more often than not, it definitely brings scores down. So we use all of those tools at the academy. I tend not to work so much with that player, but when I do, that's what I've done. And Andy's player, I remember I was with Barry and we were playing a hole at Andy's course. Beautiful course. It was a massively raised green, back right pin. And he hits. And I let them make the mistake. So I think that's some way when you're coaching, I let them make the mistake. So Barry now needs to turn into Seve Ballesteros if he's going to make a bogey, never mind getting up and down for par. And I'm like, Barry, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I can't believe I missed the green with a wedge. I said, you didn't miss the green. You didn't aim at the green. You aimed at like the tiniest shelf in the world that a tour player wouldn't have even aimed at. I'm like, what are you doing? I said, you hit push cuts. Just aim at the front left corner of the green. With a wedge in my hand, I'm going to aim 60 yards left and short. Like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm like, Barry, come on. Just trust me. Little thin. Just going to go a little further. Little cut. Runs up to the heart of the green. He's like, oh, that wasn't where I was aiming. I'm like, Barry, look where the ball is. And then he makes the putt. And then that light bulb moment. Oh, so you don't aim at the flags, right? So he had a light bulb moment. So I think, Dan, honestly, you've got to be with them and you've got to be relentless in your coaching until they either buy in or until they have that light bulb moment. I don't know if I can give you anything better than that.
Thank you.
If Ian's got time for one more, Andy had his hand raised. If not, we can end it.
Yeah, I have time. I gotta go and watch my daughter sing in her class. But I got
No,
like
I was
2
just
minutes.
gonna chime in on Dan's question. Like for us, because we've got a quad and we have a virtual version of our golf course, this time of the year when we're inside on a screen seems to be a really good time to talk about course management when they can see the hole ahead of them on the overlay. And you can talk about those key concepts, but it's like anything, like we were talking about soccer earlier, Ian, you could have a great game plan, but the game's so reactionary. So like we could go over that stuff with somebody on a certain hole, and then you get out there and you throw in, slopes and wind. And, I think people hate hearing this response, but I think you just have to play a lot of golf till you can start taking in these cues and figuring it out.
Yeah, they just become wise, right? Like if you look at the junior golfers I work with, so I just caddied for a kid, actually. We played Shingle Creek in Orlando. It was cold. It was wet. They must have been drunk when they placed the pins or forgot it was a junior golf tournament because it was taking 30 minutes to play the first hole because everyone was 4-putting. But my kids can't adapt to the grass either from up in the Northeast. I caddied for someone a couple of years ago who finished birdie, eagle to make the USAM. This kid that I caddied for at Shingle Creek, I did like 7 holes with him. He hit the ball. He's actually applied to Penn State. He hit the ball better than the guy I caddied for who made the USAM. And he shot 87. I've never seen anything like it in my life. And it was literally, his ball striking was unreal. I told him to aim at the 150 pole off the tee on one of the holes, and he was 4 feet away from the 150-yard pole. It was unbelievable, and he shot 87 because he doesn't know how to miss. So I think the pleasure of that light bulb moment, but now this kid's ready to change because the pain of hitting the ball like a mini pro and shooting 87 was it was just too much for him. So again, yeah, I don't think there's an exact science. It's just constant education. If it's part of your culture and you're constantly teaching players it, I think eventually they'll buy in. But it's very hard in that 1-hour lesson model to take them out on the court, give them as much as they would need to buy in and build from there.
Awesome.
I'm gonna have to jump ship because I got 26 minutes to get to my daughter's school. So appreciate you guys having me on. If you want to share email or anything like that, feel free, and I can answer further questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Ian. We really enjoyed it.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
All right. Everybody have a great holiday. If we don't talk to you, we'll see you in the new year.
Thank you. You too, Matt.
Thank you.